Hello and welcome to the June edition of Mytech U, a monthly educational series for technology and business topics. My name is Nathan Austin and I will be your moderator today. This month we will be discussing how to weaponize corporate culture. We are fortunate to have Day James, that's D-A-Y, James, who is the Director of Employee and Client Experience here at Mytech, who will lead us through today's topic. Before we turn the presentation over today, a couple notes for the audience. First of all, thank you very much for joining us today, or whether you're listening to the recorded version in the future. And as I mentioned, this presentation is being recorded and will be available to the world 24 hours after the presentation. So we'll send a follow-up email with links and feel free to share that. The audience is on mute. However, if you have a question, please use the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will do our best to interject your question into the conversation. If we're not able to, we'll follow up with you afterwards individually. All right, so thank you very much. And with that said, Day, please introduce yourself and take it away. Lead us through the presentation.
Thank you, Nathan Austin. Much appreciated. Yes, just to clarify for those of you wondering, D-A-Y, Nathan particularly always calls me D-A-Y because he's heard me through the years spell my name a gazillion times when people think I'm saying Dave or whatever. But yes, my name is Day, spelled D-A-Y. Day James. This presentation is how to weaponize corporate culture. A little bit about me, Director of Client and Employee Experience here at Mytech. I'm going to get a little bit deeper into what that means as I work through some of these slides. But let's just dig in here. So welcome to our presentation today. So Mytech experienced a problem. Of course, we're a business and it's not unusual to encounter problems. Most of us encounter dozens of problems every day, but we're not youthful anymore as a business. And as we grew and added more people and began to take a deeper look at what kind of clients we want and what the culture of our organization was going to look like, we began to realize that things weren't sailing along quite as smoothly as we actually thought. And I don't think that's necessarily unusual, but like all sailing adventures, eventually the boat's going to sink if you don't fix problems. And the problem that we were starting to experience is I think we weren't really paying quite enough attention to what our employees felt and thought, some of the feedback we were getting back from them, and I would say even what our clients would say. It's not that they weren't expressing themselves, our clients or our employees, it's just that maybe we weren't doing as good a job listening as possible. And the sinking that the aforementioned sinking that I refer to is we had a year where we had a much higher than usual attrition rate. We had a bunch of our staff leave, and it just was sort of I'll call it a glass of cold water splashed in our face, like, oh my gosh, we really need to pay more attention to this. So we started to think about what the solution might look like, and that's where I came in. I've been with the company for many, many years, most of those years serving in a business development role. So this role of Director of Client and Employee Experience is new to me. It's new to Mytech as well, but we felt that I might have a unique ability to kind of capture a lot of those issues and try to find some way to weaponize it. It's the name of our webinar here. So a little bit about my role. I basically, and for purposes of this demonstration, for this webinar, basically going to focus on 3 culture-related initiatives: engagement, recruiting, and outreach. It's quite a bit more complicated than that, but I tried to get it down to a concise list of 3 things that we could all easily understand. So let me backtrack a little bit. I want to go way upstream and talk about Mytech and what we're trying to accomplish as a company. So this is actually a slide. Nathan and I were fortunate enough this week to sit in a presentation by one of our colleagues here at Mytech, May Shariak, and she did an awesome job of helping kind of give us some vision as she saw it as to what Mytech's trying to do. And she pulled up this slide, and she was kind enough to let me use it here. a quote from Abraham Lincoln, be sure you put your feet in the right place and then stand firm. So that problem I mentioned, what we decided to do as a company was step back, take a hard look at what we're really trying to do, and we realized that everybody had different ideas about what Mytech should be. And so what I mean by pulling up this quote is we, starting about a year ago, maybe two really, started to redefine what every last employee here at Mytech stands for. We want to make sure our vision is unified. The kind of clients we seek are perfectly perfect for the services that we offer. And the idea there is to make sure that among our colleagues, that all our colleagues are thinking the same thing. When they encounter a problem, when they have to say something, whether it's on the phone or in person, or in a sales situation or a technical situation or a help desk or whatever, that we're all steering in the right direction, right? Oaring the boat in the same direction. So I really liked this quote when they presented this to us this week, and I thought I'd share it with you guys. But why? Why am I sharing this quote? So one of the things that Mytech has done is we've come up with a term that we think quickly and easily helps every last human, whether you're a client or an employee, understand what Mytech is trying to do, and it's make it easy. You could redefine that as make IT easy, make it easy. That's deliberate. But it kind of hits on some of Simon Sinek's concepts, like what's the why, right? Why does Mytech exist? Our employees had all these questions, but I don't think they knew exactly how to answer all of them. They were saying things like, how do I make the right decision or say the right thing? We want to make sure everybody makes the right decision, says the right thing. So this strategy of make it easy creates a framework, and that's why, again, this is May's slide from her presentation, but I kind of altered it slightly here. But it's a frame, right? It's the why, it's the framework, it's the direction of our oaring. It gives clarity and direction to all staff inside and outside and to our leadership team. So how do we do that? The whole point of making it easy is also to demonstrate how is Mytech different. Our mission statement is to grow, help, and make a difference. But basically, we decided to focus on 5 specific areas. And today, mostly I'm just going to talk about the first one. There's a lot of conversation and thought that's been put into those other 4 topics, but this is the one we're going to discuss today, a thriving culture. So a little bit of a sidetrack here, chickens at work. Does anybody know about, I think, Nathan, you've heard me talk about this study that was done a few years ago by William Muir. It's a pretty well-known study, actually, about productivity. And the idea of the study was Muir wanted to find out how you could come up with a more productive environment. To do that, he decided, I'm going to study chickens. He chose chickens because he thought chickens it would be really easy to measure the output. That's honestly just how many eggs, right? So he broke up chickens into 2 categories. Regular chickens, these were hens. I think it was a group of 9 hens that he chose. These were healthy hens that were, good at producing eggs day after day after day. And he was going to measure how many eggs they produced. Second group, though, was what he called super chickens, which I think is just a funny term. But these were chickens that quite frankly, just loved attention. Were always muscling their way into amongst the group of hens. And you think if you divide up the worker chickens and the super chickens into completely different groups, who do you think would be more productive? It kind of makes sense. You'd think the super chickens would be the most productive. But that's not the way it really turned out. In fact, it kind of became a disaster for the super chickens. Jumping ahead there, sorry. So basically, after 6 generations, Muir measured the productivity of these chickens for 6 generations. And at the end of that 6th generation study, the worker chickens, the chickens that just, stay the course, understand what they're supposed to do, not superstars. They just produce eggs week after day after day after day. They were doing great. In fact, they were producing more eggs. Their weight was better. Their feathers were fluffy. The super chickens, on the other hand, were done for. Only 6 chickens were alive, super chickens, were alive at the end of that 6th generation study. So what's the takeaway from that? Dividing up people, splitting them apart in a workplace, whether it's chickens or a business like Mytech, that model does not lead to more productivity. And Muir called that social capital. And he believes that social capital is what gives business momentum. It makes companies robust. Time builds value, time develops trust, and teams with trust work better. So that's what the reason I mention all this is that's what we set out to do here at Mytech. We felt like we didn't really have that glue, the social capital that kept all of our staff, the diversity and the different thinking and the different ages and different departments all kind of working with the same vision in mind, making it easy. There was another study, just by way of a 15-second story here. I don't remember the name of the scientist. I can't remember if I wrote it down here enough. Who did a study where he went into a company with tens of thousands of people, and there was some debate as to whether coffee breaks were a waste of time or not. And of course, several people in the company thought that forcing people to take a coffee break or allowing them to take a coffee break was a monumental waste of money because nobody would get anything done. But they relented and allowed everyone to take a coffee break. And at the end of 1 year, allowing people to socialize, creating more social capital, profits were up $15 million. Employee satisfaction measured by way of engagement surveys, employee satisfaction went up 15%. So takeaways from all that. Mytech needed to find a better way to work to fix that problem I mentioned. We would be using social capital as Mytech's new currency. And the way we're going to do that, there's those 3 items I mentioned earlier: engagement, recruiting, and outreach. And those are my responsibilities, and that's why I'm here chatting about them today. So let's dig in. Item number 1, engagement. So this was something Mytech has dabbled in through the years. Nathan and I were talking just a little bit earlier this morning. We're like, we need, this is relatively new to us, and we're pretty humble about learning how to be better at this. We recognize that we haven't been perfect, and for me, I can definitely say this has been a learning experience for me, how to measure engagement of my colleagues. So there are some tools that we've used. There's a company called Amplify that we found to be very helpful in facilitating engagement surveys. We do that on a quarterly basis. Other ways that we've really promoted engagement for Mytech is through just the whole idea is to really promote open communication, so people feel free to say what's on their mind. And the other thing is we want to be really rhythmic about performing these tasks. So part of my job is to make sure these engagement surveys happen on a regular basis. We're doing them quarterly, and figure out how to measure the results and then determine what to do about those results. So sometimes the results are really good. Other times they're like, oh, I didn't know that was happening. And it's been a really interesting experience. We have about 90 employees, give or take, right now at Mytech. So, and our staff are divided up between our Minneapolis and our Denver locations. So, we can't all know what each other is thinking. So the engagement survey really, really helps with that. So I want to talk through the engagement survey particularly and share with all of you how we're doing it. So what happens is I work with Amplify in advance. I provide them a list of all of our staff, And then they send out a survey. It's a really simple survey. We've all seen surveys like this where they, you know, the responses are either highly disagree, you know, up through neutral, and at the other end of the scale is highly completely agree. It takes like 2 minutes for our staff to do. We've found that it's pretty harmless, and most of our staff, we've had as high as a 97% response rate when we've done that. So everybody here at Mytech seems to really enjoy doing this. So Amplify, and by the way, there's other companies that do engagement surveys as well. We just happen to have a relationship with Amplify. And for any of you that want to learn more about, you know, Mytech's relationship with Amplify, we can talk offline, or you can send me an email later, and I'll be happy to share any details or get into the minutiae if you'd like. But they send out this survey. It takes a week. We give our staff a week to answer, and then they tabulate the results. And what we get back is this matrix of information, and it looks a little like this. This is a bunch of numbers. I'll kind of quickly walk you through what you're seeing here. So there are, over here on the left-hand side, are departments. Now this happens to be at Mytech's departments, field and NOC, its Network Operations Center, you know, our services and our finance. You get the idea. Different companies, obviously, most of you probably have different departments. Up here at the top are business drivers. So these are drivers, you know, important factors that any business has to think about in the daily conducting of business. So competency and feedback and role clarity. A big one we've noticed is manager. If you look over, you know, about 2/3 of the way to the right there, it says manager or PTO. So when the survey, the way they capture information, has a way of zeroing in on each of those business drivers per department. And so all the numbers you see are the results. The bluer the blue, the better, and the higher the number, the happier and more content people are. The more orange numbers that you see down here at the bottom, and if it gets really bad, they might even be represented as red. Those are numbers that are like, oh gosh, maybe we should pay some attention to that. Like that one number there, -1.8 Field Depot. That was, you know, our staff was feeling like they weren't getting enough feedback from their managers. So here's another slide of a slightly different analysis provided by Amplify. What they do is they take all that data, go backwards here, they take all this data and they put it through some formula that they have, and out pops this slide that basically shows what are these psychological conditions that, you know, your staff at Mytech are experiencing. In this particular case, there was a lot of concern about meaning. Like we were having some of our team members feel like, gosh, what am I doing? Why I'm just working to what end? I don't understand. You know, how am I affecting what Mytech is trying to do? So you'll notice over there on the right, you'll see up at the top there, November, March, etc. So one of the part of the value of doing an engagement survey quarter to quarter is you can start tracking trends. You can see how you're doing. You can see if things are doing well or slipping downhill a little bit or going up. And by the way, just to say this to everybody, you know, again, much like Nathan and I were talking earlier, we're very humble about this. This is why I'm showing you these slides. Like we just like any business, there's things that we're doing very well, and there's things that we want to do better. And how can we know what to do better if we don't have some way to measure that? So I would encourage, when I talk about weaponizing corporate culture, how can you turn your corporate culture into a tool that you can use to make yourself a better business, to move yourself from that good to great category, to, in our case, to make IT easy. It's going to be really difficult to do that if we don't understand where there might be some some potholes to walk over.
Hey, and Dave,
Nathan, I hear you plugging in there, Nathan. You got a question?
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is one of the things that. So how does this? I think one of the things about engaging a third party as opposed to just doing surveys yourself is that there's a method, and so and managers are always trying to improve and understand, but if they don't have visibility of things to work on and what this means and how does this help our team, or what now that we have this data, okay, great, so we have this data, well, what do we do? How do we interpret it? How do we help make it a positive impact on our team? That might be in the next slide, I'm not sure, but
there's just one more slide that shows in a really kind of blunt way, like I think this is one of the most impactful things that our third-party vendor Amplify provides. Oops, sorry. There we go. They provide kind of a little bit of a bar graph here that literally will show. It'll break out your employees and basically, say like everybody, the green is super happy and the orange is plugging along pretty good. But then you get down in those deep reds and so apparently someone is highly engaged. So a couple of comments about this. The survey, one of the reasons we love having a third party do this is partly to your question, Nathan, is sure, we could ask the questions ourselves. We could walk around and say, are you happy? But what we found is just because human beings are human beings, they feel a little more confident answering honestly when they know they're, especially if that's something negative to say, that the survey is confidential. So that's a big deal about employing a third party, is the data is completely confidential, and the way they do the survey, it truly is confidential. Like this, using this bar graph here that we're looking at as an example, I could not tell you. I have no idea who responded in each of those color territories. So what we'll do is we take all this information and let's just role play a little bit. Let's say that this is the accounting department, and because you can break out the data per department, you can break it out per location, but you cannot break it out. You can't assign a name to any particular feedback. So what you can do though is, we know that somebody or there's some unhappiness there. So what we like to do is, I take this information, I review it, I tabulate it all, put together some reports, and I present it to Mytech leadership team. And the next stage is for me to present it to the general managers of Mytech's 2 locations. I have a customized presentation that I do for each of those general managers. And then, with the general manager's blessing, I present this information to each department head. So using accounting as an example, I would present this information with just the accounting part of the data that we've received to the manager of our accounting department. And then he or she would take that information and communicate it with staff. The idea there is not just to communicate it though. Through that process, particularly when I'm talking to the leadership or the GMs of each of our locations, we'll start to identify and clarify and put together some sort of, what's the action item? What are we seeing that we're getting some feedback here? What do we need to change, or how do we need to react to this, or what is the action? And so that way, when we get back to when the information filters down through leadership, GM, department manager, and then finally to all of our staff, we can communicate, hey, staff, we hear you. Thank you for sharing this information. Thank you for making these recommendations. Awesome work. And we want you to know, here's what we found. Here's the information you gave us. And here's what we're doing about it. Here's the actions that we're taking. And the idea there is, over the quarter to quarter rhythm, it starts to generate some confidence among staff that, gosh, my voice does matter here. The things that I think and believe are important. And that little issue that I discovered that maybe nobody else noticed, is actually getting fixed now. So you can see how, that starts to have a kind of pile-on effect, an exponential beneficial advantage as we work towards making IT easy, because we're obviously dependent on our staff to do all the work. Does that answer your question, Nathan?
Yeah, mainly that, this is stuff that managers might not know how to solve this problem. They might, so it's great that when we identify an area of concern that we are able to be coached. So it's kind of manager coaching, right? So it's not just team engagement. It's also coaching our managers to be better managers, that are working on areas that might be their blind spots or their areas of weakness. So that is, I think, one of the things that developing leaders in an organization is one of the most difficult things any company does. And this is a way we get help because to be able to do that. So that's one of the coolest things I think about doing the engagement is not only are we identifying issues and responding to issues and solving problems that we might not know exist, but also it's helping our managers be better managers and taking care of our team better. So,
well, and also just, anytime there's dialogue, anytime you can create a scenario where you have dialogue between managers and staff, that's always a good thing. Staff, feel more comfortable and happier in their job if they know their managers are actually listening to them. And managers, none of us were born to be managers. We all have to learn how to be a better manager. So in our case, this third party that we use, Amplify, Nathan, they actually, so I spend some time after I get the survey results, they basically consult me, because in them I have the benefit of, they work with hundreds of companies all across the United States, not just IT companies like Mytech, but they work with manufacturing companies and banks and different businesses that have completely different business models. But what do we have in common with all those businesses? People. And at the end of the day, we're still a people business. We're dependent on people to make the wheels turn here at Mytech. So Amplify will look at this data and they'll say, well, here's what, usually when we see something like that, hey, James, usually it means X, Y, or Z. And what we found beneficial is we'll recommend, this or this. And I can take that information and put it through the nuanced, I know Mytech better than they do, because I've been here longer, but I do trust their input. This is why we hired them to be our engagement facilitator. And usually, and then they even follow up. They even sent me a note a couple of weeks ago saying, hey, how's that information share with X department going? We really like to know what happened with that. Are things improving? So the way we're doing it at Mytech, we've tried to put together a rhythm of communication that is based on that quarterly engagement, and that way there's a little time, a couple of months, to let the dust settle and let whatever actions or changes that we've identified take place, and hopefully that gives us, so far anyway, it's been able to give us some vision into what's happening. So I don't know, that's about where I am on engagement before I move on to recruiting. Nathan, have I missed anything from your perspective?
That sounds good. And I guess the only thing I'd say is a quick time check. We have about 15 minutes left, so I'm not sure how much the rest goes, but yeah, no, sounds good. Looking forward to the next step.
Yeah, I can pound through the rest. So one thing, just to tell everybody, when I've spoke about our engagement, man, it's a really complex set of data, and if any of you are interested in chatting with me about how we've done it, or if you have questions, this might not be the right medium to do that, but reach out to me. Nathan will make sure everybody has my contact information, and man, I'd love to talk about it, or I'll come chat with you over coffee or something. So item number 2 about responsibilities that I'm taking control of here at Mytech: recruiting. So quick history lesson, Mytech has, we've all heard stories about how difficult it's become to hire in the IT sector. The qualified IT candidates are hard to find, and there's a lot of jobs, and so recruiting has become difficult. And we made a decision to pull most of our recruiting activities internal. So that's a program that I'm overseeing. So I'm responsible for developing a pool of candidates so that if a job becomes available, or if we know looking down the road a month or 6 months, I've already developed a systematically developed qualified pool of A-player candidates. So that's just part of it.
This is not just a IT problem. I know you mentioned that people said, talking about this is we do have challenges in IT. There's usually IT has been running historically under the unemployment rate, so even a small, but I know our manufacturing clients, our medical clients, I mean, nearly every industry is affected by this issue. So just hopefully sharing some things that might be applicable in your world between industries.
Yeah, so, under the subject of weaponizing culture, if we're to say we're weaponizing recruiting, honestly, we've just tried. Nobody knows our business better than us. And we all know there's a ton of recruiters out there, and they're expensive. And I don't know, you get to looking at how much all that costs and has it been effective or not. And we just felt like maybe we could do a better job of it. So I'm learning how to do all that. And so far, so good. We have developed a pool of candidates, but it definitely has given us the ability to weaponize our staffing, right? When we do need someone, that person's available. Here's what I really want to talk about, though. Down at the bottom where I mentioned get culture involved, ABC players. There's a couple of tools that we use, more than a couple, in our recruiting that I would recommend anybody maybe think about deploying in their business. So Nathan, I know you're super familiar with both of these publications, but for those of you that aren't, I would highly recommend some, when you have a little time to read, try The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. The concept that we really try to focus on here at Mytech is hungry, humble, hungry, and smart. I'll get back to that in a moment. The other book that I think is a really awesome book is called Give and Take. It's about givers, takers, and matchers. It identifies what type of personality do you want working for you. Do you want people that are constantly I'm searching for the right word here, that are modest about always giving, helping their fellow worker. They're always ready to set up the next person for success. Or are they takers? They really don't want to help at all, but they're happy to, take, an idea or information from you. And then there's matchers. These are people who, I'll give you something, but I want something in return, kind of deal makers. So those are both excellent books. And why am I mentioning those two books? We've woven the concepts of those two books into our recruiting efforts. And one of the ways we do that is our culture interviews. So we have a culture committee here at Mytech. These are a group of our employees who have volunteered because they want to be a part of this process. They recognize that hiring compatible staffing will help them be better at what they do, will help us make IT easy. So we're always looking for the most valuable players, and the concepts in those two books they play out in those culture interviews. And we're looking for, we've all probably heard, right, ABC players. Of course, we're all looking for A players. But the culture interviews, when our employees get a chance to, it's pretty strategic too. It's not just free form. There are identified concepts in each of those two books that we ask our staff to look for in those culture interviews when they're interviewing a potential new person. Now, what that means is we've identified somebody who might be perfect technically for the skill. He or she has the skill sets for a given job, but do they fit our culture? And that's the purpose of the culture interview. And we literally, if the culture interview group, the committee, thinks that a given person is not going to fit our culture, even if they are perfectly adept at the task that we've identified for that job, we do not hire them. So that's why I wanted to mention that. Nathan, I know you've been involved in that too, so I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything before we move on.
Yeah, so the only thing that I would say about that too is that I think it's also what we find about being able to identify players is that going through that culture interview process, which we've been doing now for about 6 years, is that it actually helps solidify in the candidate's mind that they want to come work for us too. So it's not just about us qualifying them, it's also about them qualifying us. So they have the opportunity to ask questions of our team and get candid answers and get a vibe for what it would be to work with these people, work with our team. So I think that's been a subtle, unintended, original thought process consequence. We didn't think that that was going to be the case, but we've found that that has actually helped us win in a competitive when we're working to, hire someone because they get exposed to our team and they get excited about working with the people that they participated in the culture interview with. So it's kind of a cool process that we really enjoyed honing over the years.
Nathan, I can tell you time and time and time again, we've had, I think you know this, we've had people, when we've had a new employee join us, we'll learn later, they'll say things like, oh my gosh, I had never seen a company do that. I didn't know what you were to expect with a culture interview. And if there was any question in their mind about wanting to come join our team, that solidified it. And then they go talk to their friends or their network of people that they know, and it has definitely helped with the confidence of our staff and our recruiting efforts of potential new staff out there in the landscape. Watching the clock here, so if you don't mind, I'm going to move on to outreach. This is about Mytech's desire to evangelize. We mentioned culture committees. I can kind of skip over that a little bit. And then most of you who know me know I'm a big proponent of a concept called make a difference. So I do want to, before I let everybody go today, I want to talk about that a little bit. So make a difference is about assigning animal types to animal personality types to people. I know for those of you who haven't heard of this, it sounds kind of silly, but oh my gosh, what a huge difference it's made here at Mytech. This is a concept that we were exposed to many years ago now. We've been doing Make a Difference at Mytech for years. And what it amounts to is it's a book. This is the book, a third book that I would recommend to all of you take time to purchase and read. I have a stack of them here in my office if you want to come by and get one. But Make a Difference is a book written by Dr. Larry Little, who is a business consultant and a life coach, and he believes that if you understand yourself, like what type of personality you have, that you'll also be able to more clearly identify what type of personality other people have, and that will make you better communicators. And as Mytech grew, we realized we really needed to get better at understanding each other. I'll just use Nathan, you and I as an example. You and I have pretty dramatically different personalities. I'm more touchy-feely. You're more data-driven. And so, we have to find the right seat on the right bus for a data-driven person versus a touchy-feely person. But how do we know what that is? How do we measure that? So that's what Make a Difference does. It's a quick read, takes a couple hours over coffee on a weekend morning, and on page 6 of the book is a survey that you take. I prefer to do the survey old-fashioned paper-wise, so every Mytech employee that comes on board, we put them through a Make a Difference orientation. Make a Difference is all about validating those you lead. It is about understanding the diversity and how to tap into that diversity. There are a couple of primary myths built into the concept of Make a Difference. One is we believe that everyone shares the same value vision we do. You, Nathan, for instance, very data-driven, very logical. You're a lion. It's very typical that lions who roar a lot, lions rule, king of the jungle, right? Lions think that what they think is the only thing that matters, and it doesn't. Who cares if there's a trail of destruction, as you might see a lion in nature? Just as Dr. Little does in his book, I'm being a little extreme in my demonstration of what a lion does, but it wouldn't be unheard of, I can tell everybody, for Nathan to think that what he thinks is the exact same thing what he values is the same thing everybody else values. If Nathan values working 18 hours a day, I can tell you that for sure that doesn't mean that all other employees at Mytech also value working 18 hours a day. The second myth, so that's not true. That myth is not true. The second myth is everyone views us the same way we view ourselves, kind of self-explanatory here. So this is kind of my gig here at Mytech. I've been kind of the facilitator of Make a Difference through the years here at Mytech. I do the orientation about once a quarter. We get everybody in a room and we do some additional training. It's always fun. People laugh, and there's a lot of just friendship, and people are closer and understand each other more after they spend time doing this. I'm just going to quickly hit on this because I know we're running out of time here. It's monkeys, camels, lions, and turtles. Imagine monkeys in nature, fun, loud, throwing things. So monkeys in a business, same thing, love to tell jokes, always laughing, are very touchy-feely. I am a monkey. On the other hand, you got camels, who are logical. Think a camel like marching across the desert, step after step after step. So businesses need camels in our industry in IT. A lot of our staff are camels because all the intricate detail in order for us to provide our IT services requires a real attention to detail. Camels are perfectionists. Camels very often view monkeys as, arrogant, unfocused, because they can seem like that. They're loud and telling jokes and talking about some TV show they watched the night before. But on the other hand, monkeys are really valuable because they can really, they capture a vibe in the office. They very often are aware of just if there's a stressor happening in a workplace. Monkeys are really quick to pick up on that. So on the other hand, how does a monkey view a camel? Again, I've used these words as probably extreme ways of describing someone's personality, but camels are perfectionists. If you're telling time, a camel wants to literally take the watch apart and figure out how it works. They love details. Camels can suffer from depression sometimes if you're not careful, because as we all know, the daily list of items gets longer and longer. We keep plugging here for time. I want everybody to be done on time here. Lions, Nathan's a lion. Lions are uber focused, high level visionaries, can be perceived as insensitive. They're not. It is absolutely not true. And very often workaholics. They get something in their head, they will stick it out till that gets done. Lions have only one thing in mind. They want to get the task done. So if there's a project or a goal or some just task that needs to be done, lions will be relentless until they get that thing done. Turtles are super quiet, just like in nature, very peace-oriented. Turtles usually have very one-on-one interpersonal relationships, as opposed to, like, say, monkeys have friendships with big groups of people. You can imagine if you're in a meeting and you've got all those animal types sitting in a meeting, and a lion is talking to a turtle, and the turtle's just super quiet and not saying much, that sometimes lions will think that turtles are not contributing because they weren't listening. Not true. That's one of those myths that I talked about. Turtles actually very often are the most important animal type in an organization because they're actually spending time listening. Lions view turtles sometimes, here you go, emotional, lazy, all not true. Turtles view lions sometimes as bossy and inconsiderate. It's not that they're inconsiderate or bossy. They just are uber focused on getting a task done. So if you're in a meeting with a lion, it's just helpful to be prepared. Don't come to that meeting unprepared. A lion's probably going to be upset with you. I'll just say this. Anybody want to talk more about that, please let me know. And I would love to meet with you about that. Happy to, I do those presentations for clients, for peers, for other IT companies, other businesses, Chamber of Commerce, events, that sort of thing. Take 15 seconds here. How do we do all that? We give all of our we assign animal types to each person. We all have stuffed animals on our desks and nameplates. We built the Make a Difference concepts into our onboarding. See the circled part there, Make a Difference training. And that's it. Questions? You see anything, Nathan?
Yeah, Dan,
have anything for us?
Yeah, there's no questions coming in, but I guess one of the things I wanted to share is that this is a journey, and it is constantly evolving, and we're by no means the best at this. But we one of the things we've learned over the years is that our clients and our peers and our vendor partners, we oftentimes all struggle with some of the similar things from operating and running your business. And so part of our goal today in this quarter, this kind of wraps up our quarterly theme around culture, is just trying to share some of the things that we've done that we've tried to do because we're trying to solve problems and just be better as an organization. And it might not fit with the philosophy or the culture of your organization, but these are just some things that we've tried and that we're working on and intentional about. So yeah, and we do like to make ourselves available because part of, as they mentioned, kind of our outreach is we're all in this together. So if there's anything that we can do to be of help or share lessons learned so that you may be able to avoid some of the pain that we've experienced, we are happy to do that. So really, with that said,
we learn from you, quite honestly.
And we learn, yeah, absolutely. It's that's why we love to collaborate on this stuff too, because everyone's got their story to share. That's one of the reasons why we had a panel discussion earlier this quarter, was because we wanted to learn from the panel. So we definitely, we love to collaborate on these things. So the follow-up email will come out. We'll talk about our events that we have coming up. We have an amazing event coming up next month in both Colorado and Minnesota with former military NSA cybersecurity expert who's going to do a live hacking demo. So there'll be more of that coming out. So stay tuned for that email follow-up that's coming out tomorrow. And thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. And hopefully there are some nuggets of information that were valuable to you. And if there's anything else we can help with, by all means, please feel free to reach out. So signing off for today, Day, thank you very much for your time and for sharing this information with us. And stay tuned for next month.